All right, welcome back, listeners. We are here live in the studio. You may be able to see us if you're watching the recording, and if not, I hope the audio sounds as crisp to you as it did to us the first time around.
First time.
Oh man, funny times.
Funny
We
times.
are so excited to be back for this season. And yes, this is our second attempt.
Take two.
Take two.
We did a whole hour and a half long recording where we talked about Silo
Yeah.
and had a blast,
We had a blast.
talking about
Yes,
Silo. It
yes.
was such a good recording that nobody will ever hear because I forgot to hit the record button on the
It's
audio.
the
So
things,
let that
you
be a
know.
lesson, folks.
This is indeed our second round at this, but I think we have just as exciting, if not more
Yeah.
exciting, now that we've been letting
Right.
the ideas simmer and stew a little bit more. I think we've got just as exciting of a episode for you in our inaugural episode of the season.
That's right. This bonus episode about Silo Season 1 on Apple TV Plus officially kicks off the second season of Science Fiction
That's
Book
right.
Club.
That's right.
And we are talking about Silo, and in fact, starting with talking about the adaptation, because of course we're going to be covering Wool by Hugh Howey
Right.
as the first book this season.
Yes.
And we figured, why not pull a little reverse Uno card
Uh-huh.
and start by watching the show
Start with
and
the
then
series.
get into the book.
Oh yeah.
So you and I both watched the first season of Silo.
Yes.
This was actually a rewatch for you.
Yes.
This was the first time I was watching it all the way through.
Yeah.
We have some thoughts here in front of us on our
Uh-huh.
iPads. We're going to
Indeed.
talk about the show. We're going to talk about our thoughts on everything from
Yeah.
the characters to the story
Yes.
to what we think will maybe happen in season 2,
Yes.
which is coming November 15th,
Yeah.
and which we will be covering on the podcast as well.
Most certainly. So buckle in. We're going to be jumping right into it. Maybe
That's right.
start with a little bit of a plot and episode summary.
Yeah. And before I get into this, to be super, super clear, spoilers.
Spoilers.
We're talking about the
throughout.
entire first season of Silo.
That's right.
Not spoilers for the book,
Yes.
because we haven't
have
gotten
not
into
read
it.
yet, so only our
Exactly.
predictions and our terrible speculation. But yes, indeed, spoilers throughout for the entirety of season 1 of Apple TV's Silo.
That's right. Okay, so Silo takes place, aptly, in a silo underground.
Indeed.
In the opening episode, we meet Sheriff Holston, who's having a bit of a rough time.
Yes.
We learned that 3 years ago, his wife Allison had left the silo voluntarily out into the wasteland.
Yep.
And as the episode progresses, we learn the reason why she did this.
Yes.
Allison had met with a mysterious man named George Wilkins, and they had uncovered this hard drive, which revealed to them that the view screens in the cafeterias of the silo that show the outside world
Yeah.
are manufactured and false,
Huge
and that the
conspiracy.
outside world is actually a paradise.
Yeah.
So Allison wants to find the truth.
Right.
She voluntarily says, I want to leave the silo.
Yes.
A cardinal sin
Yes.
in this society.
Yes.
And so Holston loses his wife.
Yes.
We watch in this first episode Holston follow a similar path
Yeah.
of trying to uncover the truth of the silo,
Yeah.
of the things his wife uncovered.
Yeah.
And he tragically follows in Allison's footsteps.
Right.
He too leaves the silo. We get this vision of a green paradise in his helmet as he's
Right.
looking around.
Right.
Was Allison right? Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Yeah.
But then he too perishes
Yes.
right next to the body of his wife.
Yeah. A little bit of a siren song, you know, like
Yeah.
it keeps alluring these people out and to their deaths.
To their deaths.
Yeah.
So then we meet Rebecca Ferguson's character, Juliet,
Yes.
who is
Juliet
our
Nichols.
Juliet
Yes.
Nichols.
Oh,
My
man.
goodness. I have so many thoughts about Juliet.
Same,
She's
same.
such a great character.
Absolutely.
We meet Juliet Nichols. She is a mechanic working in the down deep in the
Yes.
lowest areas of the silo. She primarily works on, the generator. that
Keeping
keeps
them alive?
The power
Yeah,
on?
that's right.
Oh my goodness. So Juliet
Yeah.
has been nominated. Holston's last wish as sheriff
Right.
was to
right.
nominate Juliet as his successor, which is
Yes.
crazy.
Yeah.
She's not qualified for this job at
Right,
all.
Right.
But Mayor Johns believes in Holston and believes that he would not have picked Juliet without a reason.
Yes.
And so, with a little bit of convincing, Mayor Johns is able to get Juliet to take the job. Now, of course, we the viewer know that Juliet primarily takes the job because she too wants to figure out what's going on in this silo.
Yeah.
And more importantly to her, more personally to her, is she was romantically involved with George Wilkins.
That's right.
As we learned throughout the course of this
Yes.
series. And she wants to get to the bottom of his murder.
Right.
So early on in the season, Juliet has a very difficult job
Yes.
because a series of very high-profile murders take place.
Yes.
The beloved Mayor Johns
Mayor
herself
Johns, yes.
killed.
Yes.
Deputy Sheriff Marnes
Killed.
killed.
Yeah.
This guy we don't really care about.
Don't really know.
Yeah, Sims' Shadow, the
Yes.
judicial guy.
That's right.
But still,
Yeah.
killed.
Yeah. Juliet almost dies.
Almost.
Yeah.
It's all interconnected as
Yeah.
far as Juliet is concerned, of course.
Yes.
And she wants to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
And so most of the season is her figuring out the larger mystery of the silo and the more specific mystery of these murders and the truth of George Wilkins.
Right.
Throughout the course of the season, we watch Juliet strategically butt heads, basically, with
Yes.
Mr. Sims
Yeah.
from Judicial, this like boogeyman character who we come to know.
Yeah.
And then the new mayor, Bernard, who was formerly the head of IT and
Right.
is now the interim mayor.
Right.
Of course, we'll come to learn that Bernard is kind of the bad guy
He's
behind
the
all
puppet
of this.
master behind us, yeah.
Kind of in cahoots with Sims as well.
Right.
Things really come to a head near the end of the season, kind of in the third act, when Juliet gets her hands on the hard drive
Right.
that George Wilkins had
Right.
with all of this information
Yes.
that Bernard and Sims do not want out there.
Right.
It jeopardizes the safety and security of the silo.
As far as they're concerned.
As far as
certainly.
they're concerned. Juliet then takes Sims's wife and son hostage.
Right. The sheriff takes the
The
judicial
judicial man's
wife and
family?
child.
Oh my
it's
goodness.
quite bizarre. Yeah.
This was a crazy scene.
Yes, absolutely.
She's able to crack open the hard drive.
Yes.
She sees this really heartfelt message from George Wilkins.
Right.
And by working with some not so savory characters that
Yeah.
she has come across her as her time as sheriff, she's able to broadcast
Right.
the video of this like paradise video of the outside
What?
to every computer in the silo.
Right. Right.
Which is shocking stuff.
Yeah.
Of course, Bernard, being the head of IT, clickety clack, clack, clack,
Yeah.
he's able to shut it down pretty quickly.
Incredibly swiftly. I mean, he was in the dining hall watching it with everyone else, and suddenly he was gone and
Yeah.
had, kind of
Yeah, it was kind of
foiled
played
their
as
attack.
like a V for Vendetta
Right.
moment
Right,
where like
right,
bad guy takes over all the TV stations and
right,
gets his
right.
message out. But, if you weren't looking at your computer at the exact moment
Sure.
Juliet broadcasts the video, you probably didn't see anything.
Sure,
honestly.
sure.
It was very quick. Good on Bernard,
Yeah.
I suppose.
Oh, yeah.
Finally, Juliet is apprehended,
Yes.
ultimately. She is apprehended, and she is basically blackmailed
Yeah.
into also leaving the silo.
Yes.
And so in the final episode of the season, we wrap up as Juliet follows in Allison and Holston's footsteps,
Yes.
leaves the silo, goes out into the world, experiences the same thing. We realize that what she is seeing is fake. It's like this VR world in the helmet, this
Right.
paradise.
Right.
And she's able to basically break this cycle.
Right.
Because we're told throughout the whole show, everyone who goes out
Cleans.
cleans the cameras
Yeah.
with their piece of wool.
Yeah. And they all say kind of the same thing. Everyone needs to see this. It's so
It's so
beautiful out,
Yes.
and
Everyone does it without
Yeah,
fail.
right.
Until Juliet Nichols walks right up to that camera,
Epic moment.
stares that
Yes.
lens down the
Yes.
barrel, grabs her wool, and drops it.
Yeah.
As
Incredible.
an actual mic drop
Yes,
moment. Everyone
yes.
in the silo is
Yeah,
losing it. This is
yes.
unprecedented.
Yeah,
It's never
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
And then Juliet walks away.
Right.
Eventually, she walks far enough away, presumably from the silo, for the signal to break.
Right.
And she sees the reality of the
Right,
world,
right.
which is very
Yes.
post-apocalyptic.
Yeah.
And we as the viewer are left to wonder if Allison kind of got duped
Yeah.
or Allison had the wrong idea
Right.
and the world outside still is dangerous
Right.
and still post-apocalyptic.
Right.
The big revelation at the end of the
Yes.
show, though, is as the camera pans out, we see dozens
What appear to be dozens
of other silo
Yes.
entrances.
Yeah.
littered all throughout the
Yeah.
wasteland,
Yeah.
quite close to like
Yeah.
neighboring each
Oh,
other.
yeah,
you know?
definitely. Yeah.
Nothing that's like, oh, this is 10 miles away and
Right.
we'd never know this existed.
Right.
They seem to be quite literally
Yes.
neighboring each other.
Yeah,
Dozens of them. There
yeah.
are other silos out there.
Yes.
And that's where the show ends.
Yeah.
Juliet Nichols in her suit is walking off into the wasteland.
Yeah. Yeah. It's honestly epic. I mean, it
It's
is
so
the
good.
finale of season 1. Just was so satisfying, and I mean it didn't really wrap up the mystery. I mean, the threads are open.
The threads are open.
The threads are open in really the best of ways. I mean,
Yeah.
the fact that we see what appear to be these other silos is incredibly shocking to us, because as the audience, we also believe that there are only 10,000 humans left. I mean, that is
Right.
what all of the people in the silo believe. They think that they are one of the last generations, basically, of humanity to survive what we don't quite know. Like, we assume maybe nuclear fallout. It's kind of unclear, but
yeah.
their origin story is just as big a mystery. But in the last few moments, I mean, we see this really startling reveal.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And I will say, just to zoom out and talk about our impressions of the show,
Yes, yeah.
I loved it.
Oh,
Like, capital L, loved
Same.
it.
Yeah.
And in fact, I would go so far as to say, this show is really underrated. Why
Agreed.
were people not talking about it
Yeah.
way more when it came out?
Yeah.
About a year-ish
yeah,
ago.
yeah.
I feel like it landed totally silently, like
Yes.
under the radar.
Yeah.
I don't remember it ever being marketed to me in
Right.
any sense, and
Right.
this is my world.
Yeah.
I'm very in touch
Yeah.
with pop
You're
culture and sci-fi.
yeah, their target demo. I
I'm
mean,
the target demo.
yeah.
I don't remember this show ever coming out.
right.
And I feel like even within the zeitgeist, people were just not talking about it
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
But to me, this is a spectacular show.
I agree. Yeah.
I loved every minute of it.
Yeah.
I even wrote down in my notes here, well-paced mystery, no wasted episodes.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
truly feel like I needed all 10 of those episodes
Yeah.
for the story to unravel.
I agree. Yeah.
And on the surface level, yes, there's like a murder mystery happening. Sure.
Yeah.
But
A few of them, in fact.
A few of them, in
Yeah.
fact.
Yeah.
many bodies have hit the floor.
Many bodies. Yeah.
But I think what's even more interesting in
Yeah.
the larger mysteries that are unraveling over
Right.
the 10 episodes
Right.
is the mystery of the silo.
Absolutely.
The truth of what's
Yeah.
happening here.
Yeah.
The bombshell revelations, like the Big Brother surveillance state that
Yes.
Sims is conducting.
Yes, yeah, which was like in episode 4 or 5. I mean, we had kind of big reveals and new mysteries spawned several times throughout the season.
Several times.
Yes.
And of course, there's the big bombshells. But what really kind of grabbed me and got its claws in me was the little things.
Yeah.
In one episode, someone makes an offhand comment that elevators aren't allowed
Right.
in the
Right,
silo.
right.
But there's like, I don't know, 200 floors
It's
of the silo.
kind of
People are
absurd.
complaining about having
Yeah.
to walk up and down all
Yeah.
the time.
Their Olympics is running the stairs.
Running the
Like,
stairs!
yeah.
That's such a good point.
Right.
Yeah, their marathon is
Yeah.
like, okay, just go up and down, folks.
Yeah.
So that's fascinating to me. Like, that kind of world building is really fun to me because there's a lot of mystery there. And whether or not I get an answer, it creates this energy and vibe of the show that I
Yeah.
really appreciated. I will say, I was like, okay, was this show a critical failure then? If it was so underrated, if
Right.
nobody talked about it?
Yeah.
I looked it up. Rotten Tomatoes, 88 critic score,
Okay.
which is really high.
That's quite high. Yeah.
That's high. Like, if you compare it to Fallout,
Yes.
which was by all means
Came out
considered
to
a smash
raving
hit.
reviews, yes.
Raving
Yeah,
reviews, a
absolutely.
smash
Yes.
hit.
Yeah.
Everyone
And correctly
talking
so.
about it.
Deservedly so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was such a good show.
Yeah.
Even that, I don't remember the exact Rotten Tomato score, but it was like high 80s, low 90s.
Right. Right.
So for a TV show to be in the 80s
Yeah. And to just completely fly under the radar is quite bizarre.
is bizarre.
Yeah.
Critics clearly loved it.
Yeah.
I hate an audience score, but I'm going to tell you what the audience score is
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah.
65%.
Okay. Yeah.
Terrible,
No.
you know? But like,
Clearly not a flop, you know.
clearly not a flop.
And it's not going to be for everybody. So 65
Certainly.
honestly seems about right to me. Yeah.
Seems fine,
Yeah.
yeah. So, man, I here's my critique.
Yeah.
And here's my thought. Here's my theory. Apple fumbled the ball marketing this show.
Perhaps. Yeah.
I didn't hear about it on the
Yeah.
Target demo.
Yeah.
I kid you not, the like blurb on the app when you go and look for Silo literally says something along the lines of mechanic living underground attempts to solve 4 murders or something, you know? Like, that is hardly what the show is about.
That is such a hilariously thin summary of the show.
Yeah.
It makes you think, when did ChatGPT come out?
For real. For real.
Did somebody just phone this in? Because I think, one thing that we have to call out to just kind of reinforce, how impressive the show is in so many ways. The casting for this show.
Goodness.
Let's talk about. I mean,
Yes.
we're talking Rashida Jones as Alison Becker. Absolutely kills it.
Kills it.
If anything, I'm, as much as I'm looking forward to season 2, I'm disappointed because we're unlikely to see her. And she did a phenomenal job as Alison Becker. Of course, Sheriff Holston is David Oyelowo. I hope I said that correctly.
That was very brave of you to go right in there.
And stunning job as well. We've got Will
I
Patton
agree.
as Sam Marnes, Tim Robbins killing it as Bernard Holland, and Common as Robert Sims. So much to say about his performance.
Yeah.
But I mean, all to say, this show is stacked. And
Yes.
for it to really have escaped the zeitgeist in the way that I think it did is a little surprising. And I have to say,
agree.
I am such a fan of the Apple TV lean into science fiction. I mean,
Of
it's
course.
produced obviously Silo, but we also had, I think in recent years, Invasion, which was phenomenal. I remember we talked about this obviously yesterday.
Yeah.
Also kind of flew under the radar, I think.
Don't know that it exists. I learned about it yesterday.
That's mind-boggling to me because it is certainly one of my favorite, alien-themed. I mean, the title of the show is Invasion. Okay, so we're talking about an alien invasion. All right, sorry for that spoiler. Okay, but I mean, it's absolutely one of my favorite. It's in that subgenre, and they've ran a few others. Obviously, we've talked about Severance as well.
Yep.
I mean. In the last few years, Apple has kind of knocked it out of the park with these. And I wonder if maybe it's a saturation question or just maybe splitting the marketing budget across, these kind of across this family of shows. But it's a little puzzling. Yeah.
It is. Let's revisit this cast because you brought up cast.
Yeah.
I have thoughts.
Okay, let's get into it.
Let me start with Rebecca Ferguson as
Yes,
Juliet.
absolutely.
Holy shit.
Yes. Favorite character. My favorite character, certainly.
By far.
Yeah.
Well, Paul Billings is a strong competitor.
Run for
I really loved Juliet. I wrote down a couple of things in my notes
Yeah.
here. I wrote down that she's flawed but likable.
Yeah.
I like that she has her own motivations.
Yeah.
She's like an internally consistent character, right? She
Sure.
never acts out of character
Yeah.
in order to like move the plot forward or
Right,
something.
right.
She's always acting for her own interests.
Yeah.
Which is very consistent for the backstory that we're given for her.
Right.
We understand why she acts the way she
Yeah.
does, and she continues to do that all season
Yeah.
long. I think that's strong writing. I
Yeah.
think that makes for a strong and compelling character.
Yeah.
I also like how competent she is. Like if I was
Absolutely.
thrown into the role of
Absolutely.
sheriff of the
Yes,
silo,
absolutely.
the first sight of blood, I would
Yeah.
faint.
Yeah.
Like I would be like,
Right.
shit, I'm unqualified for this.
Right,
Actually, I
right.
don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah,
here.
yeah. Obviously, you can have the job. Yeah. Bernard, you want whomever,
else?
Robert,
Right.
whoever you want to be the Paul, you're the new sheriff. Okay.
Yeah, here's the badge, my guy.
yeah.
So I really enjoyed how competent she is.
Yeah.
But also, I loved that the show made it clear that like this is a very resourceful and independent person.
Yeah.
She's been on her own since 13.
Right.
And so, of course, she's adaptable.
Yeah.
She's going to take on this new thing. She's headstrong. She's a little chaotic.
Yeah.
She's certainly quite direct and straight up rude at points. You know,
Sure.
not the
Yeah.
most personable human being.
Yeah.
But we're given reasons for all of that. And
Yeah.
she becomes an extremely sympathetic
Yeah.
and compelling character.
Right.
Most of all, I liked that she makes mistakes and then overcomes them
Hmm.
in ways that are believable and totally make
Yeah.
sense, right? She doesn't have that like main character plot armor
Right.
where the main character can make a mistake, but
Right.
then circumstances happen to come together in a way where they make it out
Right.
of, whatever hairy situation
Right.
they're in. Juliet gets herself into situations
Yeah.
and then is able to maneuver herself out of them in ways where you're like, oh, that was smart.
Yeah.
Good, Juliet.
Yeah.
Like, that's on brand for you to
Yeah.
do, and also was very interesting
Yeah.
to watch you do.
Yeah, I will say credit to the writing of the show, maybe of the book. Obviously, I don't know how much of this is true to the book,
Yeah,
but
that's true.
I think yeah, I agree. Like it's also the case with Holston and Allison Becker. I mean, two of the strongest played by two of the strongest actors on the cast, and both of them find themselves essentially dead after just a few episodes. I mean,
Yeah.
I agree. There isn't kind of the same plot armor for even the core cast members of this show that you see. I mean, typically in most
Oh,
television,
totally.
you know. So
I was shocked.
yeah,
The Mayor John's death
yes,
hit me out of nowhere.
Yeah,
The Deputy Marne's death was a little more
yeah,
sort of telegraphed, and we knew it was maybe coming.
sure,
Totally blindsided.
Yeah.
That Holston, Mayor,
yeah,
Deputy, like
Right.
back to back, these
Right.
major characters
Right.
that are all instantly compelling,
yes,
gone.
yeah, yeah,
I think that's a strong way to open a show
Yeah.
because much like Juliet, then we are also desperate to know what
Right.
the fuck is going on
right,
in
right,
this.
right. Who's left? I mean,
Who-
like,
right.
yeah,
Just Sims.
yeah,
I brought up Paul Billings earlier.
yes,
I want to give a huge shout out to Chinaza Uchi, is maybe the pronunciation of the actor's name.
Yeah.
Instantly lovable character.
yes,
Every time he was on screen, I was glued to the screen.
Yeah.
I think he perfectly walked this line between a very competent, respectable, and quite effective deputy sheriff.
Yeah.
While also being just kind of pathetic enough that you want to give him a real big hug all the
Sure.
time. Like,
yeah,
I really wanted to
Yeah.
hug him, especially after the syndrome reveal.
yeah,
After we learned that he has this condition that he's been hiding.
Right.
Because otherwise he'll be removed from the post.
Right.
After that, I couldn't help but want to just like hug him every time
Yeah.
he was on screen.
Yeah.
Although he did burn that one relic, and I was really mad about that. He
yeah.
threw
I
it in
was
the
a
oven.
little puzzled by that. I couldn't tell if that was him helping Rebecca, like trying to get rid of some of the evidence, you know, that thinking that maybe that's what they were like
yeah.
hunting her down for, because clearly they're hunting her for having some kind of an artifact. So
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if that
and
was
he
him.
doesn't quite know about the hard drive.
He doesn't know about the hard drive, so I figured maybe this was him. You know, again,
That's a really
kinda
great
looking-
read on it.
Yeah, taking care of her a little bit.
I love that read because
Yeah.
I looked at it and I was like, oh no, he's going by the pact. All
Mm.
relics have to be blah blah blah.
Oh, sure. Yeah, but he didn't report it.
He didn't
never
report
reported
it.
Yeah.
The
and
pact
he
would
kept
say
one
report.
page. So
That's good.
yeah, a little curious.
That's
yeah.
a good read. I think
Yeah.
he was straight up helping Juliet.
I think
there.
it was attempting to, certainly. Yeah.
Wow, such a great read.
Yeah.
And again, that makes me love him even more.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Like,
Yeah.
Paul,
Yeah.
be my best friend.
Well, let me remind you, however, that he also did end up getting onto the hunt for her. You know, he did kind
Yes.
of, after talking to, I think, his wife, come to the conclusion that, hey, no, I need to correct this mistake because, to be fair, it was, I think he kind of lost his grip on her when they were on the stairs and
Yeah.
she evaded capture.
Yeah.
And you know,
Yeah.
he, I think, became more resolute in talking to his wife, realizing that Robert Sims, in fact, knew that he had the condition and
Right.
he was getting kind of special dispensation to continue
Yeah.
to serve. But he did, in fact, kind of get back on the Juliet hunt. And the,
Yeah.
at the end
And
there.
that's kind of been, that's what makes him so compelling. I feel
Yeah.
like that's been his arc for
yeah.
most
It's
of the
consistent.
season.
It's
consistent.
absolutely consistent with
Right?
it. Yeah.
He always comes in and fights with Juliet about
Right.
some XYZ thing in the pact.
Yes, right.
We have to do this by the
pact,
book.
Yes, yeah.
But then he will lie for her.
Yeah.
He will break the pact
Yeah, he
for
will
her.
cover for
He
her,
will
yeah.
consistently do the right thing, even if
Yes.
it goes against the pact
Yes,
that he
yeah.
so strongly believes in.
Yeah.
And I think that, how can you not love a guy
Of
who
course.
does that?
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
a friend who's like a rule follower,
Yeah.
but will instantly break the rule
Right,
for you,
right,
Because
right.
their loyalty to you
Right.
is
Their
above
sense
all
of,
else.
what's right and wrong. Yeah,
So loved Paul Billing,
definitely.
a very compelling character.
Yeah.
We do need to talk about Common.
The absolute best. I mean, Common, I think, and I shared this with you yesterday, of course, but I looked him up and I didn't realize this, but Common has 3 Grammys, like
Okay.
2 Academy Awards,
Whoa.
an outstanding Emmy, or an Emmy for an outstanding TV series.
Okay, wait.
I mean, he got it. I mean,
Nearly.
nearly. I mean,
Somebody get Common a Tony.
somebody get Common a Tony. He is just incredibly talented, and his performance in this show underscores that for me. I will say, about my favorite episode, Episode 5 of Silo this season is entitled Janitor's Boy, and Common gives a monologue about 40 minutes into it to his would-be shadow.
Yeah. Oh,
and
my goodness. Yes.
it is just the highs, the lows. You can see the shadow not realizing that at the end of this monologue, he will be falling to his death. And he's right there the whole time with Common, just eating up Common's essentially recollection of how he came to understand this world that he lives in from his father, a janitor, a mere
Right.
janitor,
A mere.
janitor.
Mhm.
And it was just just a stunning scene. And I think
Yeah.
Common absolutely knocks it out of the park with his character in the show.
I couldn't agree more. It's to the point where I forgot I was watching Common.
Yeah.
Right? Because
Oh,
Common
totally.
is such a well-known
Yes, of course.
just person and
Yes.
celebrity
Yeah.
on his own outside of a TV show.
Yeah.
And oftentimes for me, I struggle. Like if I know somebody too well
Sure.
outside of a show,
Yeah.
if they show up in what I'm watching, it's hard for me to buy them as another character.
Oh, of course. I mean, this is Macaulay Culkin. You couldn't see
Oh.
him in anything for ages.
Oh my
you know?
goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And Common did that.
Right.
As I watched Silo, Common disappeared.
Right.
And Mr. Sims appeared.
Yes.
And every time he was on screen, so compelling.
Yes.
I'm really glad that we learned so much of his backstory.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because at first, in the first couple of episodes, you're like, this like CIA
Yeah.
boogeyman
Goon,
character doing whatever secret
Yeah,
stuff in the
yeah,
shadows.
right.
Classic.
Classic. Yes.
But then you learn about his family.
Oh, yeah.
And then you watch the way he treats people that he's even antagonistic against.
Yes.
And you realize why he's so good at his job.
Yeah.
And it's because he's weirdly empathetic,
Yeah.
even with the people that he's fighting
Sure.
against.
Yeah.
There's that really great scene late in the season where he's speaking to Miss Hildebrand.
Yes. Gloria Hildebrand. Right.
And he sits down on the bed with her.
Yeah.
And he he threatens her.
He threatens her naturally.
Naturally, that's part of his job.
Yes.
But he also is sympathetic to
Yeah.
the fact that he has a child
Yes.
because of Miss Hildebrand's
Yeah.
help
Yes.
as a fertility
Yeah.
doctor back in the day.
Yeah. It's a weirdly warm
It's
conversation.
a warm conversation.
Oh, yeah.
And the tone
Yeah.
is incredible. And
Yeah.
I think Common walks that line so well
Right.
as Mr. Sims in this show.
Yeah.
Between, I get where this guy's coming from. I can see why he's so good at his job. Oh my God, he's doing vile shit.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And
Like,
how is that
in the
not
same
fun to
breath
watch?
almost?
Yes.
Yeah.
In the same breath that he's
Yeah.
like, "Thank you for my son. I
Yes.
wouldn't have him without you.
Yes.
He's turning 6 next week.
Right.
I will lock you in this room
Right,
forever and to
right.
be tortured with your own."
Right.
you know?
Right.
Like, Did you just say that in the same
Yes.
breath, Mr. Sims?
Yes.
Fuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really great character.
I agree.
I have one other character I want to comment on.
Yeah.
Lucas is the mysterious man in the cafeteria.
Yes.
He's charting the
Right.
stars,
Yeah.
which he doesn't realize are stars.
Yeah.
I'm a bit confused why nobody knows about astronomy in the silo.
Yeah, they are weirdly capable, but also very ignorant of basic
Yeah.
human history. I
Yeah.
don't even. Yeah, it's a little interesting. Yeah.
I hope we learn more about that.
Yeah.
Why that history in particular has been lost.
Yeah.
But Lucas is out here. He's charting the stars.
Right.
Juliet runs into him every now and then, and they strike up conversations. Lucas is very endearing and awkward.
Right.
And there's a bit of a romantic flirtation happening,
Yeah.
mostly from Lucas's side,
Yeah.
but I don't know that Juliet is rebuffing him entirely.
Sure.
She's open to it, I think. But the only thing I really have to say about this is that there's no way Lucas has that beard and that hair and is simply not drowning in silo pussy.
I mean, you're not wrong.
I could not get myself to believe
Yeah.
that Lucas was this nerdy, awkward bumbling.
Supermodel.
I've never been in a romantic
Right,
situation.
right,
Nobody.
right.
Not with that hairdo.
Yeah.
Not with your like chiseled jaw.
Sure.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Like such
a true
good
Chad. A true Chad.
such a
yes.
good looking guy.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a miscast because
Yeah.
I think he still played it really well.
Yeah.
But I think it was a little silly. This is very like American television.
Sure.
Everyone in American television is just like
Yeah.
10 out of 10
Yeah,
gorgeous. Even the quote unquote nerdy ugly ones.
Right.
And Lucas kind of falls into that category for
Yeah.
me for sure.
Yeah. I definitely feel that. I will say on characters. So you make a great point about Juliet, who's, I will say again, favorite character,
Mhm.
and also Alison Becker we have played by the incredible Rashida Jones, phenomenal character. We've got
Yes.
Martha Wells. We have a number of really strong female characters, and I think that they are played incredibly well, and their role in the story is one that I appreciate, and I really
Yeah.
kind of enjoy their how their characters are written. My only critique, I guess, is both with Juliet and I think it is mainly with Juliet that her subplot with George Wilkins and
Yeah.
also with Lucas, to me, I didn't find much point in it. Like I kind of
Yeah.
get like how it moves, some of the plot forward, and also that it heightens some of the I guess tension and is part of the motivation for Juliet in pursuing these kind of great conspiracies and mysteries. But I didn't think that it was necessary, and I kind of
Mhm.
felt like it. I don't want to say to undermined, say her character, but I would have been also happy without it. Like I think it totally.
Yeah.
It's the episodes where they're kind of sharing more of their intimate moments and their time together. I didn't care for as much. I'll be honest.
I'll
Like,
admit, I reached for my phone
yeah.
every time we cut to a flashback of
Yeah.
them being romantic in bed or whatever.
Right.
I was not feeling the chemistry on screen.
Just didn't think there was that much chemistry.
And,
Yeah.
and I agree.
Yeah.
I don't think it was necessary.
I think it was totally necessary.
I still would have. And you know what? Like, I can understand in the writer's room, they were like, we need to give Juliet emotional stakes in this
That's
murder
a great
mystery.
way of putting it. Yeah.
Right?
Right.
But I would have believed it if this was even just like a childhood friend
Exactly.
from the Down Deep or something.
Yes. Yeah. One of her
You know?
colleagues, honestly, would have been totally fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a colleague, right?
Yeah.
Like I didn't need this to be a romantic entanglement
Yeah.
for me to still believe there's
Right.
stakes.
Right. And again, not the biggest criticism. I think we both agree this is really a phenomenal show. But I think, that's like the one element that to me was could do without.
Yep,
Yeah.
I agree. Okay, let's get into some questions I have about the silo itself.
Yes.
Just talking nerdy world building
yes,
here.
Yes.
I loved the world building in this show.
Yeah.
We saw, for example, the many layers of the silo,
Yes.
the hydroponic farms.
Yes. Yeah.
We saw some of the traditions like the biting the apple and throwing
Right.
it in the grave
Right.
during a funeral.
Yeah. Yeah. The paper lanterns on
The-
Freedom Day.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
Very fun to see this world building take place.
Right.
Both visually, like
Yes.
TV is a visual medium,
Yeah.
so a lot of this didn't need to be explained.
Right.
I can recognize a hydroponic farm and
Yes.
understand this is
Yeah.
where they grow their crops.
Yeah. Also, there are like retro computers and like their tube
Yeah.
monitors and lots of really fun little elements like that.
For sure. However,
Yes.
this raised some questions for me. First up, you mentioned earlier there's 10,000 people in this silo.
Only 10,000.
How does that work for genetic diversity
Hmm.
of the people in this silo?
That
I'm
is
no,
a good point.
I'm
Okay.
no like geneticist, biologist.
Sure.
So I feel like someone out there watching
Yeah.
maybe has a better answer
Yeah.
than I do. I frankly only have questions here
Yeah.
about this. Is 10,000 people across multiple generations?
Yeah.
Because we know at this point there are kids
Yeah.
whose parents have lived their entire lives in the silo,
Right.
whose grandparents have lived
Right.
entire lives in the silo,
Right.
and the history's lost. We don't even know how old this
Yeah.
silo goes back.
Yeah.
Is 10,000 enough to sustain enough genetic diversity in a population to avoid like one coronavirus level
Event. Yeah.
event
Yeah.
that just wipes everyone out?
Right. Right.
Is that enough?
Yeah.
It makes me wonder
Yeah.
because they are so excuse the pun, siloed
Yeah.
off from everyone else.
Yeah.
It is just these 10,000
Right,
people,
right,
and they all
right.
know each other,
You're
and
like
they
in a
all
little
have some.
petri dish, you know?
It's a little petri dish, and you really risk
Yeah.
some sort of biological disease
Yeah.
wiping everyone out because everyone's practically weak to the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes me wonder if there's larger answers to these questions that we haven't gotten yet.
Yeah.
And of course, we're told there are other silos
Yes.
in the final seconds of the
Yes.
show in the season. So it makes me wonder if there's a situation akin to, remember in Fallout how they traded people in marriages
Right. To promote their diversity.
to sort of promote genetic diversity,
Yeah.
to spread diversity around
Right.
in that sense, so that one of those Fallout shelters would not just succumb to disease.
Yeah. Right.
I'm curious how the silo is handling that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's clear that they practice pretty strict, severe population controls. I mean,
Yes.
to the point of deceiving those who are attempting to conceive,
Right.
which, obviously horrifying. I mean,
Oh
it's
my God.
those are one of the kind of more that's one of the more dystopian elements present in this show. But yeah, I mean, to your point, it does kind of make me wonder a little bit if that is why there are such strict rules about not going outside. And is it maybe to prevent, maybe it is the petri dish, this like petri dish theory, perhaps, that these other silos are an avenue to ensure the survival of humanity more broadly. I mean, that's like kind of where my mind goes, but it is curious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very curious about it. And because we have the syndrome,
Yeah.
clearly not a deadly disease of any.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, maybe we know
Hard
very
to know.
little
The
about
syndrome
the
is another thing that I'm also kind of wondering about because it played a relatively minor role in this season, at least. Obviously, a huge part of Paul Billings' story,
Yeah.
but there is no one else with the syndrome, and there does seem to be something in the pact about people that have the syndrome, like they aren't allowed to serve in certain capacities, and makes me kind of wonder, like, how big of a problem is it? Like, what? Yeah, it's a little bit of an open question there as well, I think.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll explore more of those
Yeah.
in season 2. The other thought that I had about the world building of this silo
Yeah.
is, I guess when I learned the premise of the show, I thought it would be smaller, like more cramped.
Yeah.
It's kind of huge, right?
It is absolutely
It's
yeah.
enormous. Even
It's
the
enormous.
walkways are
Yes.
like enormous.
Yes. Yeah.
You could drive like
Yeah.
two cars.
Yeah. Oh,
like,
easily.
side by side.
Oh,
on those.
easily. Yeah.
It's big.
Yeah.
Even the apartments.
Spacious. Luxurious.
Spacious.
Luxurious.
Dare I say
Yes.
luxurious?
Yeah,
Of course.
indeed.
Like I have been in New York City apartments that are smaller than
Yeah.
anything
Oh.
we saw in the show.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, certainly.
People paying top dollar
Yeah.
in this horrible market right now.
Yeah, sure.
This horrible rental market right now.
Yeah.
Paying top dollar
Yeah.
for small,
Yeah.
tiny little
Yeah.
apartments
Yeah.
that, frankly, I feel like anyone in Silo would be like, I'm not fucking living in this closet.
Oh, yeah. Cozy would be too generous. I mean, yeah, you
Oh
couldn't.
my goodness.
Yeah, you just,
I mean, that was certainly a question I had.
yeah.
Was with the visual aesthetic of the show.
Sure.
They seem to have kind of made everything big.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem that bad. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that crazy? The silo seems fine to
Yeah.
live in.
Yeah.
It's like spacious. You have running water.
Sure.
You
Yeah,
have
yeah.
electricity.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, that is maybe another small flavor of criticism that I have is there is a little bit of like 90s sitcom flavor to the set where it is very spacious. It is quite,
Yeah.
if anything, there are moments where I'm kind of thinking, it's a little utopian. This is kind of, I
wanna live in the
Is it on any of the? Is it on
Right.
Street Easy? Like, I might,
I'm a little envious of
Yeah.
Holston's sheriff apartment,
truly, yes.
which,
To be
obviously
fair,
the top of the
he's an
top.
elite, yes, yeah.
That's a very high ranking
Sure,
job.
sure.
He gets a great apartment.
Yes, yeah.
But even the other apartments we saw,
They're
like-
not miserable.
like Kennedy,
Yeah.
who's like a
Right.
uh,
Yeah, former convict Kennedy. Yeah.
like his place looked pretty cozy too.
Yeah,
Like,
it
what are
did,
we
yeah.
talking about
Yeah,
here?
yeah. It is honestly a little I don't want to say farcical, but it is kind
Yeah.
of funny that they have and I will note that like there isn't quite as much grime either. Like it is a
So
rather
clean.
clean city, it feels like.
I-
For an underground bunker,
Yeah.
where's the dirt?
Where's the dirt?
I don't see any dirt.
Where are the rats?
Where are the
Where's the bugs?
Right. Where are the bugs?
You're
yeah.
underground?
Yeah.
There's got to be like creepy crawlies
You
everywhere.
kind of figure, but
It's a little, for a dystopian show,
Yeah.
it's a little clean.
yeah, little Jetsons, little
Yeah.
a little polished, yeah.
And obviously that's just the visual aesthetic. I'm
Sure.
curious if the book tackles this
Yeah.
in a different way, or
Yeah.
if the book makes it clear there's like very cramped quarters, you
right,
have to
right.
walk single file,
Right,
whatever.
right. Competition for like showers or some, whatever the
Yeah,
thing might be. Like,
whatever the thing might
yeah.
be. I think the show makes the silo honestly look kind of cozy, and I don't
yeah.
know. I'd vacation there.
I wouldn't not live there if it was an option. yeah.
Oh man, what a good show! Any final thoughts about Silo season 1?
Yeah, I think there are certainly a number of mysteries that we still have yet to explore, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how they show up in season 2. So obviously the question of the broader silo or silos, as we've come to now know, will we find that the other silos are in fact inhabited? Like, I'm totally wondering if it's the case that this is the last remaining, livable silo, perhaps.
Yeah.
The open question around the syndrome, like, is that going to become a bigger part of the story in the second season?
Right.
I think there are a number of questions that we're still on the verge of answering as the season 1 kind of wrapped up, and that's kind of where I'm sitting here. Like I'm really
Yep.
satisfied with how season 1 came together, and the criticisms that we have, I think they're not the worst. They're really quite mild, and ultimately leaves me pretty excited for what's coming up.
I agree. I'm in the exact same boat.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to unraveling more of these mysteries in
Yeah.
season 2, and I'm looking forward to reading the book.
Yes. Oh my God. I've been waiting with bated breath.
Yeah.
I'm like, I just want to read this now.
The show has made me more
Yes.
excited to get
Yeah.
into the book
Yeah.
because it's kind of fun to know that what I watched is an adaptation.
Yes.
And because of the very nature of television,
Yeah.
it's not going to be as dense as a 400, 500 page
Sure.
book.
Yeah.
So now I'm kind of excited to like get into the more dense side of things.
Yes.
And learn more about this silo and get the info that a TV show doesn't have time to cover.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I'm excited.
We didn't even talk about the Flamekeepers, but
Oh
there's
my
like a
goodness! There's a
whole
whole-
subplot there that
Oh
I
my
think, like
goodness.
I really hope that they has covered a lot more in the book, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, Silo season 1 covers roughly-ish the
Half.
first half
Right.
of Wool
Right.
of the book.
Right.
And then season 2 presumably picks up from there. So what's fun is the way we've built our schedule on the show this season
Yeah.
is we are going to read the book
Yes.
and be done with it by the
Right.
time season 2 comes out
Right.
on November 15th, and we will be covering season 2. It'll be fun to then do the inverse of what we're doing now.
Right.
We're doing show first, book later for
Yeah.
the first half for season 1.
Yes.
And then for the second half of the book, we will have read the book.
Right.
And then go into season 2.
Right.
Knowing what will happen
Yeah.
and watching it get adapted.
Yeah.
So we kind of get the best of both worlds in
Yeah.
this experience.
Yeah. This is obviously a novel experience for both of us, going series
Yeah.
or adaptation to book. And I'm really quite, for having not started the book yet, I'm really quite I'm enjoying this process. I mean, I think it's really kind of fun to go this way.
I agree. I feel pre-invested in the
Exactly.
universe.
Right.
I'm
Right.
primed
Yeah.
to understand it and jump right in.
Right.
And
Versus
start
coming
digging
into
apart
it
the
with
details.
almost wanting to attack from the outset the adaptation. Like I'm basically, as I'm
Yes.
reading, if I've read the book before, I'm always coming into the adaptation
ready to be like, why did they change that?
my hand is on the trigger, like I'm ready to go, like ready to shoot them down.
Not on the remote.
No.
Not on the remote to turn the TV off. Your
No.
hand is on the trigger
That's
of your
right.
Glock.
Take out the TV. I am not watching any more of this. So it's funny.
That's such a great point.
I have the exact opposite energy coming into the book right now.
Yeah, I'm not going to go into the book and be like, "Oh my God, that's not.
Yeah.
How dare?"
Yeah.
Yeah,
why is there so much detail? in
God damn it.
Yeah.
Totally. Why
Right.
isn't this broken up into 10 easily
Right.
digestible episodes?
right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is fun.
It is fun. I agree.
This may
Become a new default? I don't.
This may change my mind.
Yeah.
My policy has always been
I agree. Yeah.
source material first, adaptation second.
Yeah.
This is new.
There's something to be said for this. I will say.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, more to come. More
Yeah.
thoughts to come as we get into the book.
Yeah.
That's it for today, folks. Thank you so much for joining us on this conversation about Silo Season
Yes,
1.
yes.
We had a blast with the TV show.
Yeah.
We hope you did too.
I agree.
And we hope you'll be joining us this season, not only to read Wool together by Hugh Howey, but then later in the season, we're getting into A Psalm for the Wild Built
Yeah, Becky Chambers.
by Becky Chambers. Then we're rounding out the season with one of the bleakest books I've ever read.
This is a challenging one.
This is going to be a challenging
Yeah.
one. Parable of the Sower by
Octavia
the
Butler.
incomparable Octavia Butler.
That's right.
We have a stacked season, and we hope you'll be joining us for all of it. I can't wait.
Yeah.